Hell, there are some intelligence families that live near me that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have people named and tied to people named Justin Kulvinskas and Mark Violet. I believe Justin Kulvinskas married someone named Lucinda Alderuccio or Lucinda Kulvinskas. I don't know what her original name was. I never saw her on a campus in my life except one time, right before I graduated. I believe I was made to stay back by two teachers that are increasingly involved with collusions with these names, next to a serial body killer's body dumping spot, as reported. That serial killer and people involved with the prison, he's reportedly at Sandy Hook Prison, or was. That prison had collusions with that body dumping spot and names next to it, and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, before and after the World Trade Center attack, and with people from that location increasingly involved with wire crimes and predicate acts of Wethersfield police, attaching little kids and their families to fake conversations with themselves, fake locations, including with the news to cover up life regressions with that. A whole bunch of people, students and teachers at Trinity College, had people on my street at the time involved with in Wethersfield, Connecticut, involved with untimely death at Trinity College, and use/s of it, collusion/s, with the same house involved, years apart, totally different families, and two different home break-ins roles with different people, with Heather Hansen, increasingly involved with the FBI director Robert Luskin, and courts involved with forcing child abusers leaders of kids, including sexual and medical, overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, also with their educators. See, we have the difference of why and how people need to go to schools to be qualified for jobs. They're using their difference to get over on people the way the breaching method knew. Forgiveness is because they're also lying about why and how people bring up their names, because they were also shown by the breaching method already. Needs to hide collusion/s with predicate acts methods. These are also people with corners of streets on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, in its conjunction to Main Street, in its conjunction to Route 175, right through Wethersfield, on the corners of that street, in conjunctions to it and to that, are their roles stacking and having stacked with the intelligence community. Collusion/s, all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, roles, needs, natures, and styles that a breaching method maintains. It shows them they need to self-value any body, including if it's a majority as a body, or any country trying to counter that properly. This breaching method had internationally monitored conversations juxtaposed collusion/s with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and those internationally monitored conversations at the same time, terrorists. In all these countries, and then America founders were born. There were already rules with that, and more than 13 colonies entrenched. The only reason they came to unity is because James Madison's plan and the founders behind him in that plan, which was to counter-extort at key locations. And to force the people to have no means to defend themselves because they broke the internationally monitored conversations, the private criminal enterprises rules, the overt criminal enterprises rules, the insidiousness of people A through Z, because the campuses have been criminally poor, influence, tactical collusions, raw collusion/s from off them that with no one wanted collusions with. Specifically to have that used as evidence where they make exceptions at the same time, because it needs to hide behind its roles with motives. Nature is demonstrating a human fact chibi nature breaching method. Nature has been demonstrated. A human fact chibi nature breaching method is one of the motives that was true always. That motivated people, even though they didn't want to have roles with that, being systems tactile terror from nature's, where nature is not only itself as criminal insidiousness. Nature shows us to appreciate this. Where and how. And why entertain those natures of justice originally instilled they can't entertain that without having nature demonstrate negative out of nature progressions acts in nature, including positive ones, self-added collusions with the negatives to keep from the identity of relativity to ourselves that nature has been showing us the scientific value of a human fact human nature breaching method as. That's what the slavery laws were about. That's what the witch trials were about, even if they're completely made up. Regardless of who made them up for what reasons, that's what they're about. The human fact human nature breaching method that was entrenched. Same ones that have been sustained against Native Americans, while being and through bodies, including us countries themselves, already tortured, fact human nature enslaved, and therefore physically. Not country A through Z has had possession of their name, where and how it counts. All exceptions exception nature. So there are positive treatments, there are negative treatments, there are name treatments, there are different treatments affected by how they were child abused by this breaching method. Only having allowed to be experienced, only having allowed to be manifest. Systems that roles with systems, tactile terror from natures and where it communicates with us. Again, we are a species body of individual bodies, a different species body than other species bodies of individual bodies themselves. And we have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time by that same identity of value/value progression per science discernible. Hyper invisible, but still discernible for how it is manifest that way. Anyway. So in other words, there's a Justin Kulvinskas who sought me out with a marked violet across the street from my house. And they have rules with sequence shifts. And people, I never had a class with them. And I don't even think they went to my grammar school. But increasingly, people from my grammar school and their educators colluded with people from off campuses, people I don't even know. I only had good feelings about everyone I went to school with, even when there were exceptions. I understood that and how they were influenced by off campuses. And as people do experience, we're going to examine how there are things hyper evidentially recorded. That's the only reason we haven't paid attention to them. It's because they are effectively used by this breaching method to show the branches of governments and the intelligence tied to them, the names of the people, the sciences, and the counters. Like people complain. In other words, anyone who does rightly, they're sensed, and it is adapted to. It is not just natural and where everyone's wanting to make opinions regarding markets, even though our founders demonstrated to us there were private criminal enterprises. The difference of their guilt, the overt criminal enterprises, the terrorists, the witch trials courts, the interbranch, the communications locations, they're put in the same sequence shifts. They are blaming other things, others ourselves, for things that our founders themselves and nature itself at the same time demonstrated for us to blame on a human fact human nature breaching method. Our founders wanted nothing to do with the slavery forced entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies and roles with that. And with what it caused, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to be blamed on other things, others, ourselves. Otherwise, that body was sensed. That's what we were supposed to pay attention, which recorded about the value of those laws. We're not supposed to separate what witch trials are about. When, for example, there's a witch trials place right next to Webb House. This preaching method wants and needs keeps the people who know the most about witch trials to use that to get over on someone trying to speak about that hyper evidential right there. You have a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. And they have other things, they have other communicated for what our founders communicated about really why and how George Washington came to that place right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, and to Hartford, Connecticut, and to the rest of the colonies. More than 13 were entrenched. Roles with that breaching method: that torture, extortion, fact, human nature, slavery, 3 ways manifest. Also 3 ways manifest: identity theft, fraud, slanders, styles, needs, and natures. The breaching method propagated roles without only allowed, specifically to propagate roles, needs, and natures, methods, plural, not even fathoming, so thanking. The breaching methods means to show them only 3 branches of government have locations, areas, and states. For example, not just the difference of their guilt, how they can use their difference, other people's differences. They need to do it preemptively to hide things from the past, what's actually recorded now. The value of the uses of their own names, their own differences as kids of their family, as adults, and what's to come. This breaching method complete possession / possessions over appreciation of short words with convictions, let alone convictions with guilt assignments, let alone convictions with guilt assignments, exactly the way the hyperforeign breaching method needs. Nature itself shows us, and our founders left to classify for us to discern this, that and how sickly, non-distinctly, slavery was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies. And the only reason there was a side that was capable of voicing against that, which ignored both sides didn't do it properly, because there were still roles with both sides. But they couldn't equally fix both sides because not one side had free speech. James Madison, once he was a president / chief also, he still didn't have free speech. Someone must teach. Supposed to understand how and why. George Washington's plan was to counter-extort. I mean, it was using James Madison's plan was to counter-extort. Everyone was extorted. Everyone was relying on punishment. Everyone was counter-extorting each other. The only founder we know the name of, they didn't tell us George Washington was our founder, though. They directed us to understand why and how. The only founder we know the name of is James Madison. And they left to declassify for us to understand and to appreciate why and how. James Madison and everyone else didn't have, even James Madison didn't have free speech. And everyone had to pretend they had free speech to an extent, / extents, plural. Otherwise, that body was sensed. And it was adapted to, again, even if that body was a majority of people, even if it was everyone. So we're going to use principles themselves, Black pupils, as many since they were kids, have long. We do this. The polling locations and research locations have roles with organized crime methods, like wire crime acts and methods, planting illusions in databases, as collusions / S with predicate acts to themselves, also planted in databases, like fake transcripts. All natures of investigators are recorded in their campuses. The difference of guilt with that at the same time with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, even when they're not in the same, all sides of cases, all the local formal laws, they're put in the same sequence shifts, the same collusion / S with a method, with that method / S. Because that was a singular breaching method. Again, nature itself shows us that's one of the things true always. That all those crazy laws against human differences were at the same time. But they have the subject separated. Self-guided roles with that entertained being and haven't been entertained. Well, that's what my base thinks. That's other base thinks. They're making them entertain base. These are all styles. The breaching method showed them how to speak about the law, about difference, let alone America's and our own at the same time. This different species body. Only one species body. The only reason why we could ignore so long have been used remotely too, as systems tactical terror from its own. All truth that show other used to screen that black pupils. I have to be a lawyer. Any lawyer who denies that black people's rights of eyes reassignment is about a predicate acts method and or the difference of it manifest as that exploited or as a criminal insidious nature method. He may have a bunch of criminal insidious natures of subject treatment incapable of affording to be entertained into the proceedings and time treatments. For example, exceptions exception nature as they are actually manifest. The breaching method showed them will say and think, oh well, at least we have a juries here. At least we have due process. They don't have due process for Americans. The breaching method is measuring and maintaining the only counters capable of countering, and people having to pretend other by going against how foreigners are prevented due process. They are used to measure and maintain self-valued roles with identities of experts, identities of industries involved with predicate acts with facts methods. Oh, but that's not my job. You have to ask someone else. Then they self-value those other people, just changing and faking what's actually recorded. A hyperforeign shows them they have to do that. It is recorded how they keep each position, even the names of the positions at the courts. Criminally foreign influence, tactical illusions, raw use /s of them, collusion /s. And then further as the people there, relative to how you guys were child abused, or what I caught the names next to the campuses doing. Increasingly, people tied to a kindergarten. I went 1 year at school there. I never saw a DeMoro. I didn't know who the DeMoros were until 5th grade. Increasingly, people on Valley Crest Street, next to that school where it was, and Wethersfield, Connecticut, they have roles of people named DeMoro involved with my 5th grade teacher. Increasingly involved with people with the body dumping spots, plural, including of a serial killer in West Hartford. People with the name DeMoro and Cololo have wire crimes with multiple police departments and predicate acts with roles and collusions with multiple police departments and courts, and names with the corrections officers and judicial branch offices, collusions with all kinds of crime scenes since before they were and with that body dumping spot since before that was proven, and since I was a kid. Joe DeMoro and Ray Clough confessed they have conversations with people about the toggle house that was there, planting evidences with investigators involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, wire crime acts, falsified police reports, collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all kinds of confessions, connected confessions and requests for help from complete strangers. Then they put fake nature ties to use the strangers as people involved with the F.B.I. with the courts grouped 2 predicate acts at West Hartford locations, connected family and intimate ties of Harvard courts and the Britain Superior Court. They have roles with that body on the spot and names next to it of a serial killer with a Justin Kulvinskas. And he has a brother. I don't even know his brother's name. I never saw them on campuses. One time, real quick, they made a fake exception to pretend other with. That's one of the things I noted about people involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts with the news and their collusion /s with the location /s and names involved. They try to put me fake ties to the people there too. As increasingly, Eric Burge is also recorded, expressed, demonstrate, confirm he has roles with the intelligence community at and next to Central Connecticut State University, involved with the Dean Judd and his kid, involved with the F.B.I. Director Robert Lusky and his co-defendants and their family members, the lawyer, involved also with identity thefts and frauds at and next to campuses, putting fake ties, fake transcripts, roles with all natures of investigators use remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically illusions raw. Their roles with a park and people associated with John Dennis and a Joe Dennis. Also all along Route 175 from Wethersfield through Newington. and in New Britain with New Britain police forms and department, and police department, and Newington police forms, police department, people with the name Phelps, and others like Jensen. I don't know if he's part of that police, but D. Simone, about people from Wethersfield with sexual medical offenders of kids, per people at the campuses too. And they hid with the principal child abuser recorded to me, confessed and confirmed to me, which is much worse than upskirt pictures they put him in jail for, reportedly at the shopping centers. Now, the shopping centers and malls have roles with the same name /S. Phil Collusions is further involved too with Bob Chase. Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics, with various judges and prosecutors and doctors involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids and evidences rackets and changing and faking digital evidences with names Collusions /S at crime scenes too, including with them putting fake things on people's computers. These are increasingly people with leasing agents intercities and with the military involved with the Mark Violet and with the Justin Kulvinskas, also with Harvard Hospital, with World Trade Center predicate acts, and with sexual and medical offenders of kids, families involved with that as victims are what? The victims' advocates have collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and sexual medical offenders of kids forced under the guise of being for victims. The Britain Spirit Court has victims' advocates increasingly involved with child abusers, as the ones involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, predicate acts, methods, uses of titles and differences, collusions /S, including with the World Trade Center attack. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. WFSB is recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirmed. Wethersfield Intelligence has roles with people next to Fox Connecticut News in Hartford and next to WFSB in Rocky Hill, involved with foreign and domestic military and fire departments and mayors and their family members and other natures of conjunctions to them, and to the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, involved with all kinds of organized crimes through how cover-ups of uses of predicate acts with facts methods and the method of it. Not just discernible where and how we hear these voicings of humanity, as collusions /S with the positive treatments, not just the negatives. In other words, and the differences treatments, therefore names, with the worst things in history. See, the subject treatments, they're parting the subjects from the breaching method that our founders and that nature itself communicates about. So these are people I never tried to contact that sought me out to plant fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. They have roles with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic, interstates and intercities and intra-cities and intercampuses and intra-campuses. These are increasingly people, collusions with people I didn't even have classes with, never even saw them around campuses at my grammar school, involved with people at other campuses I went connected to that, with syntax and confessions. Also manifest relative to their roles of the World Trade Center attack. And the World Trade Center attack used self-valued roles with juxtaposed organized crimes because of their juxtaposed organized crimes method /S roles. Like where and how they have readings of statutes and precedents recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, criminally point evidence, tactically illusions raw. Right where and how we can observe too, recorded. They can't afford to have exceptions and exception nature treated properly because they already faked that on a mass scale. And nature forced that because nature's been, in other words, the only reason they're getting away for all truths for other, because we've been using positive and negative like truth or lie through an as systems tactical terror from its own, individually, grouped, and simultaneously at the same time. In other words, that's one of the reasons why and how, which is also evidence, why / evidence is, why and how we have black people's rights of bodies. And that was left out from this treatments of the subject of slavery, and where and how they make it complicated and where and how they make it easy to understand or to think about. They're doing it tactical theory from how nature uses what's easy and hard, just tactical theory from them. Nature is increasingly demonstrating to us the difference of itself as a simultaneous nature or as a hyper simultaneous nature, and with where and how it comes also with a third connected part of its complete body. Cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall slash S. And with the life coming through it acts appreciating gases and water in its elements. This is in demonstration slash S of the same. Okay. So I'm not even a doctor. A whole bunch of doctors have roles with the child abusers, leaders of kids years apart first force, with all kinds of nature of identity theft, fraud, they have their kids on Facebook covering up live progressions because they already faked the conversations and ties to people into databases. All kinds of a whole bunch of people tied to a Rick Sanfaglione and Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm they have roles with the Britain Spirit Court and with people like a Brian Silver, and names next to Central Connecticut State University with foreign and domestic military involved with predicate acts on my street and with the parallel streets with the intelligence. And then they lie about why and how we're bringing that up. They don't want privacy. I tried to speak it without doing that because these are the people forcing everyone to speak through others and self-guided roles. Otherwise, that body is sensed. So that's why you in other words, they're also planting evidence on all sides of the kids' houses with the families at and between and next with names, the difference of the guilt there or next to the campuses. There are connections between them. And so in other words, there's increasingly people with the name Mendez involved also with the name Sioka. There's a Dr. Gilmore who pretended through the mail he had conversations with me as collusion slash us increasingly with the F.B.I. and foreign and domestic military and various natures of federal criminals involved with Weathersfield, judicial branch officer, corrections officers, and where them and people tied to them live. And they've been using right to life since I was a kid. They attached to collusion slash us a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of different connections to the houses and businesses next to Harvard Hospital. Increasingly had collusions with names next to and at each of the campuses I went. And there were timed use slash us of that as collusion slash us, where how the news has World Trade Center predicate acts recorded and methods of them recorded, but they are not following mandated law. With the interbranch that has wire crime acts and methods with them, also with their phones, changing and faking what's actually recorded with phones and digitally recorded. And they're putting fake transcripts at courts and at police stations, putting fake ties, fake nature of ties to kids with foreign and domestic at the same time, overt criminal enterprise, private ones. They are incapable of treating properly any instance, any nature, any of crime scene. Increasingly, Central Connecticut State University has roles raising investigators and their families criminally foreign influence tactical delusions raw per a method that has been intercities and intra-cities with names at and next to campuses used remotely that way. Criminally foreign influence slash hyper-criminally foreign influence. Also with where and how self-guided roles are recorded, replacing what our founders communicated about the torture, fact-checking nature, extortion, and slavery method that had been entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies, and how no one had free speech yet, including our founders. Can't be off fake conversations with WFSB and New Britain Superior Court and Harper courts. They're refusing to get on paper legitimate with the F.B.I. before and after the World Trade Center attack. I caught them before they started making fake charges and collusions to cover up what I caught them. There was no charges. I caught them using the body dumping spot of the serial killer for other natures of methods of organized crimes and collusions with people on my street. Also with the campuses, intercities, and those spots, they brought it up. They'll tell you this. Same ones that were in backgrounds probably pretending other too, because they're just repeating fake things. Increasingly, co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and their family members have roles with organized crimes, all kinds of nature, private criminal enterprises, overt criminal enterprises at the same time, multiple police departments, and people that planted evidence on my street, with the families involved with the falsified police reports and police refusing to identify themselves. That keeps stacking fake things as collusions into databases. Weathersfield police also have predicate acts with Saudis. They forced collusions with them, with some Mendez police, also with New Britain Superior Court, Weathersfield Police Department, and Fox Connecticut News. Also with Facebook, sexual medical offenders of kids, as a Joshua Julian. Also collusions with them with intelligence families near me. And they're attaching everyone to fake to change communications with each other. And they're trying to fish for cover-ups too. I've been asking you guys for a long time to get them on paper, one name in sequence. The police forms and the courts, and the FBI and the forensics names, they use wire and mail crime, digital crime methods. They use self-value rules with collusion/S already having been. Every nature of investigation investigated in their campus use remotely criminally poor influence black pupils. Get them to follow mandated law. Get me off a fake conversation with WFSB, torturing me not to say anything about what I caught them doing with World Trade Center predicate acts and those other countries they're leaking. They're recorded leaking with the silence too. You don't attach people to a fake conversation and pretend not to realize all the nature of the organized crime mixed with that. And with other people, they pretend to be fake conversations with too, as collusion/S. Then they have to hide that, but the hiding the breaching method at the same time. Self-valuing quality of fact-cheating nature with the subject treatments that can't defend that and afford that quality of fact-cheating nature necessary to overcome criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. Fact-cheating nature, quality aspects in nature. Subject treatments at countries A through Z only haven't been known. Come on, ye species, body, tread, who disbelieves? Get me off the interfaith conversation with the British Superior Court, Harbor Courts, and the WFSB in Rocky Hill, intercities with the State Judicial Branch Office and Corrections Offices. Watch what I caught them rolls with. Souls. Don't bring up Epstein without this. You're going to play games, even if that's completely made up.